Now, as far as mass media goes, they have that under control. You know, if you watch TV, if you listen to the radio and you read the newspaper, what you're getting is propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, and outright lies, essentially. So, of course, the internet has leveled that playing field, and it's going to be interesting to see how long the internet lasts as a medium of free thinking and accurate information and cogent analysis and truth-telling. Because the government hates the internet. Hate it. But I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to control it or not. But that's a story for another day. Now, the Freemasons are more Ahrimanic. They take their instructions from Ahriman. And of course, both Lucifer and Ahriman are extremely wise in their own way. And these individuals are very highly spiritually developed. Now, the Masonic Brotherhood, they want to control the money. And they set about doing this, as I said, around about the 16th century. And the names are pretty well known as far as the fronts of these brotherhoods that set about to control the money, because they knew that if they controlled the money, they could control governments. And that's exactly what they have succeeded in doing. So, because the money situation is such that we actually don't have any money used as legal tender. All the monies of the world are all currencies. None of them are money. They don't qualify. Because money has to have certain attributes for it to be designated or considered money. And what all the currencies of the world are debt notes. The dollar, the franc, the yen, the euro, they're all basically created as an issuance of debt. So a dollar is an IOU, meaning that we owe, when you have a dollar bill in your pocket, that's an IOU that you owe to the Federal Reserve. That's what it means. So of course, if you can create currency out of thin air and then pull the wool over everybody's eyes into having them think that this is actually money, well, you have them under your control, because everybody then is a debt slave. We're born into debt, we live in debt, and we die in debt. If we use the dollar, or the yen, or the franc, or the pound, or whatever. So, now, and they've certainly, up until this point, although that is unraveling, it's obviously unraveling, because there's certain things that every human being cannot do, no matter how powerful they are, or how wise they are, or how knowledgeable they are about spiritual things. They cannot overcome the laws of nature. It cannot be done. And there are economic laws which are equivalent to laws of nature. And one of them is that you cannot pay off a debt with another debt. Not possible. And so the issuance of debt as a dollar bill, the Federal Reserve note, means that you cannot pay it off with another Federal Reserve note. So in order to keep this whole monstrous scheme going, you have to borrow more money, which you owe, because credit is just the other side of debt. So it's all fine if you can keep the fiction up that you're actually paying off your debt with more debt. But at some point, which has already been reached, you have to issue more debt in order to pay off the old debt. So, what happens is you reach a point where you cannot pay it off without collapsing the whole system. And that's what's actually happening. It's actually transpiring right now. The sovereign debt problems of the world. Because the time-honored substances that were used as money for over 5,000 years of recorded history, even though they've been debased and trashed and misused, because there's always a tendency for people in power, despots, governments, kings, emperors, and so forth, to ruin the monetary system for their own benefit. That's always been the case. It's just it's not accidental. It's actually coincidental. Every ruler of every description known has used their power to abuse the currency, to abuse money for their own selfish purposes, and to rob the people of their just rewards of their daily labor. This is simply a fact. And of course the reasons for that I will go into later. I mean, it's inevitable. The way things have been set up in terms of governance over the course of the history of humanity, run by emperors and kings and queens and dictators and presidents and prime ministers. Inevitably, they will abuse their power to debase the currency in order to enrich themselves. And this has happened time and time again. But the difference this time is it's worldwide, because the dollar is the world reserve currency. And that was done at the end of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, meaning it was forced upon the world because of the military might of the United States at the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference. People forget that. They thought it was all a gentleman's agreement. Believe me, it was not. It was forced upon the world by the American federal government. And the federal government of the United States of America, after 1944, became more profligate and wasteful in its spending. And it ended up on August the 15th, 1971, in creating, for the first time in history, world currencies which have no backing with either gold or silver. Not to mention this is totally unconstitutional. Now let's just leave that little detail out. So, everything's unraveling right now. And this is the fundamental cause, at least ostensibly, of what's happening in terms of the social and political destruction that's happening worldwide, and is going to get more and more intense as time goes on. Because what the result of printing debt is that everything goes up in price, priced in that debt. And at the same time, there's a misallocation of capital. In fact, there's a destruction of capital. Because that's what debt is. It's the destruction of capital. Which means that there cannot be any proper investment in manufacturing. And in the creation of jobs cannot be done. So there will be the combined problem, which is happening right now, of the misallocation of resources, investment, the inability to raise capital, combined with the increasing cost of living brought about by the debasement of the currency. Since the Federal Reserve was inaugurated in December the 24th, 1913, the purchasing power of the dollar has declined 98%. And it will go to nothing.